Welcome back to So You Really Want to Learn Latin, and today we're going to carry on the exciting story of the early origins of Rome. You will remember we left our hero Aeneas having just defeated Turnus, the Latin prince, and as a result of this had won the hand of Lavinia, the daughter of King Latinus. Aeneas and his new bride set up a new city which they called Lavinium in her honour, and there they lived happily ever after. Now, Aeneas' son, Ascanius, sometimes called Iulus, didn't want to live in his father's city. He was a young man and he had ambitions. And so he set off and he went further up the river Tiber and he founded a city which he called Alba Longa. Now, it was in Alba Longa that our next story begins. Because in Alba Longa, the king, Procca, had two sons, Numitor and Amulius. Now, Numitor was the elder and Amulius the younger. So rightfully, when Procca died, Numitor should have become king. But Amulius was a reckless, ambitious young man, and when his father died, he seized the throne in place of his brother, and went a stage further. He seized his elder brother's daughter, Rhea Silvia, and locked her up, and he kept her as a Vestal Virgin, which was a particular type of priestess who lived in a temple compound sacred to the goddess of the hearth, Vesta. Now, according to the legend, Mars, the god of war, was travelling across the land and caught sight of the beautiful Rhea Silvia and came down and, as we used to say when being delicate, visited her. And as a result of this visitation, 9 months later, Rhea Silvia gave birth to twin boys. However, Rhea Silvia was unable to keep this little secret from her wicked uncle, and the babies were seized from her and thrown into the river Tiber. Happily for the twins, they were washed up on the riverbank, where they were found by a she-wolf, who took them back to her cave and suckled them. That is to say, she kept them alive by feeding them her milk. And it was in the cave of the she-wolf that they were discovered one day by a shepherd named Faustulus. Faustulus, finding these very young babies in this she-wolf's cave, picked them up and took them back to his wife, and asked his wife to look after them as if they had been her own. So the two young boys grew up with Faustulus as their father, and they were named Romulus and Remus. Now, several years later, the two boys, Romulus and Remus, got involved in a dispute between a band of shepherds working for wicked King Amulius and a band working for Numitor. Now, during the fight, some of the shepherds working for Numitor grabbed Remus and dragged him in front of their master, Numitor. Numitor took one look at the boy and, as in all good stories, thought he recognized him in some way. And then when his brother Romulus rushed in to see what was happening, Numitor looked at the two boys together, Romulus and Remus, and somehow the scales fell from his eyes and he knew them to be his long-lost grandchildren. He told them how his brother had dispossessed him and pushed him off the throne, and Romulus and Remus determined to put their grandfather back on the throne where he deserved to be. Sure enough, the two boys drove their wicked uncle off the throne, but they themselves, of course, didn't want to live in someone else's city. They were far too ambitious for that. And so they set off to build their own city. Okay, so Romulus and Remus went back to the place where the kindly shepherd Faustulus had brought them up, and there they began to build a city. As they worked on the walls, they obviously took to disputing with one another who was going to be king of this new city. And so they looked around them, and as they looked around, they saw 7 hills rising majestically around them. Now, augury was an ancient form of determining what would happen in the future. Very often it relied on observing the behaviour of birds. So, Romulus climbed the Palatine Hill, and Remus climbed the Aventine Hill. And from their position on top of those hills, they looked up at the skies to look for omens. Probably they were hearing crows like I am now. After a while, Remus excitedly ran down from his vantage point on top of the Aventine Hill and came up to his brother and said, "I have just seen 6 vultures. I must be king." But Romulus pushed him roughly aside and said, "Yes, but I have just seen 12. So it was decided that Romulus would be king of the new city, and the new city took its name from Romulus and was called Rome. Romulus and Remus carried on building the city, but one day Remus, getting a bit tired of his elder brother and mocking the slow rate at which he was building, jumped over his wall. He was just, making a sort of brotherly jest, but Romulus did not take it well. And Romulus took out his sword and stabbed his younger brother with the words, "Thus perish anyone who jumps over my walls." So there we have it, the foundation of Rome by Romulus, traditionally in 753 BC. And in our next history lesson, we will find out how the kings of Rome fared. Okay, hope you like these lessons as a little bit of light relief from the joys of the Latin grammar. Back to that next time, and see you for more videos like this in the future.